Participating through YouTube. We're using this format so that we can involve the most people possible. So the way this is going to work is that if you have questions you'd like to ask Mark or the leadership team, please email them during this broadcast to uwttownhall@uw.edu. And if we don't get to your questions during this time, we will add them to our Q&A on the campus website so that we can make sure that we answer everyone's questions at some point. So we have some questions that have been sent in prior to this that we will start with. You can send yours in during this, and you can also send them in after this, and we will continue to answer your questions because we know people have a fair number. So on the Zoom call with us, our Chancellor Pagano, Executive Vice Chancellor of Academic Affairs, Jill Purdy, Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Mentha Hines-Wilson, Vice Chancellor for Advancement, Josh Knudsen, Vice Chancellor for Information Technology, Patrick Powell, Assistant Chancellor for Equity and Inclusion, James McShay, and Assistant Chancellor for Community Partnerships, Ali Medeiros. So once we get to the Q&A portion, I will be calling on different people to answer different questions that are related to their areas. So Mark, the floor is yours now.
Hey, thank you very much, Joe, and hello, everyone. I know this isn't Bill Phillip Hall, but it's where I've been spending a lot of my time for the past month, so welcome to my home. This is our second University of Washington Tacoma virtual town hall, and even from my own home here during the past few weeks, I have seen every day what a blessing it is to be part of an institution that's built to last and that's here to stay. You know, in so many ways during these past weeks, our community has been taking care of us, but we've also been taking care of our community. Did you know that generous donors have provided over $150,000 to supplement our program of emergency aid for our students? Also, our campus pantry has figured out a way to combine online ordering and acceptable, appropriate pickup practices to continue serving our students in need. Also, we're doing everything we can to help the small retail businesses who lease space for us on Pacific Avenue. We're waiving their rent during this time of remote instruction and drastically reduced campus traffic to help them to get through this and come out on the other side. Also, several of our staff members have worked with the Downtown Tacoma Partnership to launch Hero Meals. This is getting free meals to first responders in our hospitals, while at the same time, it's helping our downtown restaurants grow their takeout business. This includes places that we all know like the Swiss, Indochine, and Zeke's Pizza. It's incredibly important that we take care of those whose hardships are greater than our own. You know, that's one of our fundamental missions as an urban serving campus and an anchor institution of downtown Tacoma. Now, getting back to business, we all know that Washington's Stay Home, Stay Healthy activity that the governor has given us, the directive he's given us, is going to remain in place through May 4th and possibly longer. And that has prompted us to make several corresponding decisions across the three campuses of UW. First, let's talk about summer quarter. A-term and the full-term classes that begin on the first day of summer will be offered totally remotely and will not meet in person at all. However, no formal decision has been made about the B-term, which starts on July 21st. So stay tuned for that. Maybe you'll hear more about that later. Also, summer registration is already underway, and even though it began just on April 13th and it's very early, UW is up in numbers as a whole for summer sessions. So that's good news. Another thing that we all look forward to in spring is commencement. UWT will honor all 20, in fact, UW will honor all 2020 graduates with a live worldwide interactive webcast on June 13th, 2020. UWT will participate in this broadcast, but will divert over numerous times to Tacoma-centric portions throughout the ceremony. So graduates of the class of 2020 are also invited to take part in and receive special recognition in the UWT commencements in 2021 through 2024 if they wish to take part in a regular commencement, so they can walk across the stage as they earned in front of all their classmates and family members. And another good thing is our graduates don't have to make a choice. They can participate in both the virtual and the face-to-face commencement next year. I think our students have realized how important their investment in education really is and how it will pay off in the future. And because of this, our spring enrollments are strong. We're up over 100 FTE from this time last spring. That's utterly amazing. We are working hard to get all of our students through to graduation. Now, we recognized early, though, that many of our students would be under significant financial pressure. So we worked on opportunities to help in any way that we can. For example, we worked to get the UPass fees waived for all 3 campuses. And we're still working to get the Y charges waived as well, independent of what the other campuses are doing who have internal recreation center fees that they're paying. Also, our IT staff distributed laptops to all students who requested them. And as they ran out, the library, the Milgard School of Business, and ASUWT all stepped up and provided more. Everyone is working together on this. Also, we're making more and more emergency aid grants than ever before, and staff in student affairs are hard at work prepackaging financial aid for all of our students. And we urge any students out there who are in any need at all to please contact us. So even through all this chaos, UW-Tacoma is holding up fairly well financially. And while we are suffering from significant losses of income with respect to many things I've mentioned, our parking fees are not coming in, student fees, the tenants aren't paying rent, and we have lost income from conferences that are canceled and professional development activities. But we have stayed firm and we have no furloughs or layoffs currently planned. And that being said, we are dipping into our reserves and we will remain very, very conservative in our spending throughout this crisis. We believe, though, that we have solid state support and we're hopeful that enrollment will continue to be strong. Another area I wish to mention is how proud we are of our faculty and staff. They've stepped up during this immediate transition to remote learning and service. We're so proud of them. And I'm actually amazed by the ingenuity of our faculty. Last week, Provost Richard told a group of us, he quoted this number, that there are 7,000 courses taught across the UW system, the 3 campuses each spring. And this is all shapes and sizes of classes. Some have labs, some have performances, some have studios, some have clinical components. There's all kinds of classes across the 3 campuses. And do you know that out of this over 7,000, only 175 weren't able to go remote? That's just utterly amazing. I can't believe that. That's if you calculate that, that's just barely over 2%. So I think I can speak for the entire UW how deeply proud and how deeply we appreciate all the incredible work of our faculty and staff to get this done. But our continued success will depend on your willingness to continue this, to continue to innovate and improve our ability to deliver an education remotely. Now, if you're like me, and I think a lot of you are, I think you probably really miss campus, and I do as well. So last Saturday, when I had to make my trip down to campus to my office, it was one of the first times in about 3 weeks that I had a lot of folders related to the budget things I'm working on that I needed to retrieve. But I walked around and took a few pictures of the campus, which you're seeing now. It was absolutely beautiful. Wow, I'm seeing the pictures now. The new tulips are in full bloom and just as pretty or even prettier than ever. You know, the tulips obviously don't care anything about COVID-19. Our campus was in full spring dress clothes, and it's beautiful. And speaking of our campus, let me talk a little bit about the work on campus. There's projects going on, and they're continuing on many fronts. We are continuing our work on the Snoqualmie Tioga remodel and the engineering labs in the basement of GWP. We're also moving forward with the design of our next academic building, Milgard Hall. Some of you may have heard that we are losing Melanie Peterson. You know, she was an outstanding and is an outstanding addition to our campus, and we're really going to miss her, you know, but we're also extremely happy for Melanie. She's taking on her dream job, a position with Forterra. She's going to be a project manager on the new Hilltop development project. So we're happy for Melanie and congratulate her. And we do have a new person that's shadowing her now that's going to take this work on as capital projects manager. And his name is Shannon Thompson. And he's a local person and very experienced. I'm looking forward to working with him. And I know a lot of you will look forward to meeting him and working with him as well. Also, I have a couple of exciting new developments to announce about our existing staff. First of all, Dr. Ali Madaris, who's on this Zoom call, was just named last Thursday by the Board of Regents as the inaugural Dean of the School of Urban Studies. So congratulations to my friend Ali Madaris. And I'm probably a little bit out of school here, but I'm going to say it anyway. We fully expect Dr. Sharon Fott will be named the inaugural Dean of the Nursing and Healthcare Leadership very, very soon. We're so proud to have this great leadership on our campus being recognized in this way. So in closing, I would just like to acknowledge that, yes, right now, a lot of things are out of our control, and I don't do very well with things out of my control. However, maybe we should not think about that. Maybe we shouldn't focus on that, but focus on things that we can control. And that's what I've been trying to do. And I think that's what many of you are doing as well. I can see it in the efforts that I've seen with all of my senior staff, the leadership team. I can see it in the efforts of the faculty and staff I talk with on Zoom calls. I can see it with our donors and with our community leaders. Each person is doing what they can do. They're contributing what they can and doing it with enthusiasm, passion, and also doing it very, very, very well. So thank you so much of that. I am so proud of UWT and its people. So as I've been thinking, you know, we might not have the NBA right now or Major League Baseball, but we do have the purple and gold team out playing Beat That COVID-19. And I think I have picked the winning team. So go Huskies. Let me give it back to you, Joe.
Thank you, Mark. And the first question, as you might imagine, has to do with finances. And it's kind of a two-part question. So, and this is directed at you, Mark. How is the campus planning for the economic uncertainty created by COVID-19? And to what extent does the stay-at-home order impact the budget during this fiscal year?
Well, thank you, Joe. That's a pretty complicated question, and I anticipated it because we had several questions about the budget coming in previously. So let me kind of move through some talking points on that. It's got several parts, so I'll kind of go through a couple of them. First of all, over time, through a combination of strong state support for our campus and relatively good enrollment trends that are encouraging, at least in the short term, and the margin-focused work that we've been about at our campus for the past 2 years, I think our budget position for the coming fiscal year is reasonably secure. And if things don't continue to change drastically, I believe we might have some room for some modest program innovations in our budget moving forward. Our plans have been reviewed and okayed by the president and the provost. Dr. Purdy and I had an opportunity to have our annual budget meeting with them just 2 days ago on Tuesday, and they gave us the okay to move forward. Now, part of this planning has involved Dr. Purdy. She's been working closely with the Dean group, and you all recall that we requested an exercise last spring for them to work on this year, where they went through reduction plannings of 1.5, 2.5, and 4.5%. And as we're at this point in our budget cycle, we've asked them to land about at the 2.5% level. a total, not individually schools, but across the board. And I've asked Dr. Purdy to work with the deans to come forth with that amount of reductions in the academic areas. And what we hope to do with that, in addition to any small new amount of tuition that we get from the modest tuition increase, we'll put that money together. We'll also enhance our margin and let it decrease a little bit. And we'll move forward, if everything works out well, with some modest enhancement exercises. And what my campus budget advisory committee has asked for, and this is the committee that's made up of the 2 student leaders, the 2 staff council leaders, and the 2 faculty leaders, they've asked for me to kind of put my ideas together on what the priorities would be with any of those enhancement requests, and send that to them for feedback and for them to comment on. So I'm working through that. Now, with all this being said, I think many of you may have seen the letter we got from the Office of the OFM, the Office of Fiscal Management from the state yesterday. It was a pretty stern memo, but it just asked us all to be planning for the future, that there may be some need to postpone things, or there may be reductions in the state allocation of the budget coming forward. They didn't say anything specifically, but just encouraged all of us to be thinking about that. So we don't know where that is going. It's similar to what happened, I am learning, in 2008 when they had the recession. Likewise, I mentioned earlier that the campus is experiencing some reductions right now, and we're estimating those, and those are primarily because of loss of parking fees, loss of student fees, the loss of the rent from the tenants, rental income, also lost income from conferences and professional development activities. And that is totaling up to somewhere between $2 and $2.5 million. But the good news in that, there's some expenditures that we won't have to make because some of those things aren't taking place. So we're predicting a loss of campus about $2 million in this last quarter of the year. But the good news is we have a healthy reserve. We've been contributing to that reserve in an ongoing fashion over the years. And even with the work continuing on our capital projects and with these losses, our reserve will still be solid. It will be somewhere between 12 and 15%, which is right in the range of best practices for an institution like ours. So that's all good news. And right now, as of the beginning of this month, we are not planning on any layoffs or furloughs of our employees on our campus. But you know, the nature of this recovery and the pandemic's impact on the global economy, we can't predict what's going forward. But my priority as Chancellor is to keep all of our UWT community in place and whole. The last thing that I'll say is with new hires, the UW as a whole and our campus is being extremely conscientious with any new hires. There are requirements that we have to go through. Any new faculty hire has to go all the way to the provost office, and any new staff hire on our campus, new or just even replacement, any offer to be made has to come all the way to my office, and we're going to be diligent about that. So what we hope to do in the near future, we're moving forward on this, is to keep our budget moving forward, always update it, and be prepared to make some enhancements, and we'll get input from the campus community on how to prioritize those enhancements moving forward. And then we'll be prepared for any other reductions that might come our way. And I already mentioned that work is continuing on a couple of the campus projects, but you know, those projects are multiple year. And if something happens in the future, we can change our decision, but for right now, we're moving those forward. So let me stop there.
Okay, thank you, Mark. This next question is for Mentha, and Mark already talked a little bit about commencement, but can you please talk a little bit about commencement and what is happening now and will be happening over the coming weeks and months to plan for celebrating our graduating class?
I sure will. Thank you, Joe. First, let me say hello, Tacoma. And I know I can't hear you, but I'm going to do this again. Hello, Tacoma, and hopefully you'll respond and say hello. So Mentha Hines Wilson, Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. And yes, indeed, there's been a lot of work and conversation regarding commencement for 2020. As Chancellor Pagano mentioned, our first priority definitely is the wholeness and the wellness of the campus community. So with that, we are not in a position to be able to offer in-person commencement. And that's disappointing for everyone. Disappointing for students, disappointing for faculty, disappointing for staff that are intimately involved in planning those details. So on the Tacoma campus, we've actually had conversations with our student leaders, ASUWT in particular, as well as a small group of students who are on the commencement planning committee. It's been the consensus of that group that we do want to continue to be celebratory in these times and also create options for students to participate in years going forward. So here's the good news. At the end of the day, there will be something in the inbox of all graduating seniors that outlines what the next steps are. So it allows you to know the date, which is June 13th. It also talks about the two options for 2020, virtual, as well as participating in a celebration that's going to be postponed for 2021, 2022, 2023. The other element of that email message is to recognize we want input from students. This is your program, this is your activity. We're working together as a community, as we always do. So be on the lookout for information coming to you, soliciting your ideas, thoughts, opinions about how we can indeed have a safe, healthy celebration for our graduates. So that's the good news as it relates to Commencement 2020. The one other thing I would like to offer very quickly is, I know in this time of uncertainty, we all have been a bit isolated. And it's difficult because we are a campus that really embraces community and being engaged and connecting with each other. I know the weather conditions have warmed up and there's a natural inclination to be out and about. I am asking you all to resist that and to continue to adhere to the governor's order. We do not want to put ourselves at risk. I would not want you to put yourselves at risk. So this is your Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs asking you to continue to hold tight. We will get through this together and we will see you on campus when it's healthy, safe, and wise to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mentha. This next question is for Jill, I believe, and that is, what longer-term impacts do you foresee for the university and for our campus?
Thank you, Joe. I'm happy to answer that question, and I will build on the theme that Mentha has said, that I think we will first begin by celebrating our reconnectedness and the relationships and the sense of community that we have on campus. We'll be taking time to get restarted on research that has been paused, on community projects, on relationships that we need to strengthen and just reconnect with each other, on field work and internships. And so as we reconnect, we'll identify new opportunities, and I think we'll all bring a different set of eyes and a different way of thinking based on this experience to those relationships. I think that our mission of access and excellence will be even more vital as we return to our new normal and our sense of connectedness once again. This experience is really building our resilience and our creativity, and we will be poised to be even better. Many of our faculty are discovering new pedagogical approaches as they rise to the challenge of remote instruction and finding opportunities in how to help students learn. So that helps us create even greater access to higher education through hybrid and online offerings that we may choose to do in the future that make it possible and easier for students to start and finish a UW degree. This may include students who are adults who are returning to complete a degree, or those who are military affiliated, people from outside of our region, or those who are working multiple jobs or parenting. That flexibility that we are learning about through the challenge of asynchronous remote instruction may serve us well in the future. And I think it's incredibly important that we take advantage of what we're able to learn from this experience, because higher education has always been an important pathway to economic and social justice. And our campus has the potential to expand its transformational reach as a result of this experience. So I'm hoping that the long-term impacts will be very positive.
Great, thank you, Jill. This next question, I think, actually demonstrates just asking the question demonstrates the nature of our campus community. And it is, I was wondering about the status of campus custodial workers. If they're working, what extra steps are being taken to protect them, and are they receiving hazard pay? And if they're not working, are they still receiving their income? So, and then I've got a follow-up question for that afterwards, Mark.
Sure, I'll take that question. Again, that's a complicated question, Joe. You're giving me all the complicated questions. But before the crisis began, we had been considering to bring the custodial staff that have been doing such a great job on our campus into the UWT community. And what that means is actually going from where we contract it to an outside vendor to actually hiring custodial staffs ourselves. And we were in the process of that and had already made the decision to move forward on that. So our long-term contract with ABM has come to an end, and right now we're contracting on a month-to-month basis with them, and we have a great relationship with them, and we're moving the campus forward. The work is a little different that the custodians are doing now. The whole campus as a whole is not getting filled up with, the trash cans aren't getting full and things like that. But we're going from room to room and doing deep cleaning so that when we do start coming back to campus, that everything will have been scrubbed down and ready for the people to come back. So the work has been a little bit different. But then what we're going to do, and we've started already, is one by one bring those custodians on our own staff. So if you go to the hiring page, it may not be up yet, but it will be up very soon. We're going to hire a group of 5 or 6. And then a month or so later, as we get more and more use of the campus and we have to see how the rollout, the return to work happens, we'll get a few more, but we should be back to full staff with our own custodial force by the middle of the fall, I would say, is an estimate. So that's all good news. And to answer the first part of the question, I don't believe they're getting hazard pay. I'm not privy to that information because all the pay of those custodial workers right now comes from the parent company, ABM.
Yep. And a follow-up question that again demonstrates the nature of our community, and that is, can we set up a way that we can reach out to them since they don't have UW email addresses?
Sure. If people want to reach out to them, several of us do occasionally go to campus. So I know several of our custodial workers. I know all the ones that work around GWP. I would be happy to find out the best way to contact them. And I plan to go to campus Saturday or Sunday just for a few minutes. So I can find that out and get that information on the fax page.
Great. And just so that you don't get all the hard questions, Mantha, what's going on with the YMCA fee? And the person asking the question said we shouldn't have to pay the fee if the facility isn't open and we aren't using it. So what's happening with the Y fee?
That's a great question. And so let me also acknowledge all the students who are participating and listening into the town hall discussion. So the conversation regarding fees has been ongoing from the beginning. So we have been chipping away one by one in making the appropriate recommendations, getting them to the appropriate individuals to make the decision. So Chancellor Pagano mentioned earlier that we've been successful in adopting a waiver, if you will, or opt-out for the UPass. We have also most recently had conversations with ASUWT and SAFC. They have formalized their recommendation and their support that a refund for the Y be in place. The Chancellor has also authored a letter of request. That information has now been forwarded on to the Board of Regents, and we're waiting for final approval from the board. So students, I know from the outside looking in, you're thinking, why is this so complicated? It should be very easy, right? We're not using it. We should get a refund. End of story. And I would argue, I don't necessarily disagree with that sentiment. However, we are a business and there are certain processes that are required. So I appreciate your patience. We are indeed exercising due diligence, consulting every step of the way, making the solid case, argument, rationale, and strong support for this. But ultimately, the decision is outside of Tacoma, and we will hear back from the Board of Regents. As soon as we do, we will be sure to notify you, okay? So again, thank you for your patience. I wish we could tell you there was a decision right now or that it's imminent, but we don't know. but we do know that we have put together a very strong and compelling reason, and it's our hope that the response will be affirmative.
Great, thank you, Mentha. So Jill, this question's for you, and that is, what is happening with hiring for new faculty and staff positions?
So building on what the Chancellor said in his remarks, the UW is in a state of restricted hiring, which isn't quite the same thing as a hiring freeze. We are able to hire into positions that are deemed critical, and the UW has established a set of criteria for determining which positions are critical. And that means that the Chancellor will need to review every hire that's made, both new and replacement hires for faculty and staff. And as he mentioned, for any permanent hires, any hires onto the tenure track or into lecturer positions, as well as any librarian hires, those are all being reviewed by the Provost's office. The university is being very prudent with respect to its finances and trying to be very cautious in making any new hires, because the impact of COVID-19 on enrollments and budgets is not yet known. It's still uncertain. And so that also means that in addition to current searches and searches in the near future, normally our annual process around faculty searches for next year that would be hired to begin the following year, so fall of 2021, are also being scrutinized pretty carefully. And so faculty searches for next year will also be reviewed rigorously, as they always are, through our hiring plan that we submit to the Provost's office. If we are able to show the justification and a critical need for a position, we're very hopeful that those positions will be approved and we'll be able to continue making progress. Thanks.
Great, and actually I'm going to transition. There's one that came in while we were talking that I'll transition to Mark, and it relates to Jill's answer though, and it is, how quickly will you be making those decisions, Mark? And the questioner said, we have several hires and positions in process this quarter. So curiosity about kind of how quickly you will be making decisions around staffing. I know that the provost is making decisions around faculty. So, Mark?
Yes, so we had a little bit of a backlog when we started getting the word about the definitions of critical and that we would need to bring every new position through that set of definitions. I held off on a few, and then on Monday at the meeting that we had with the vice chancellors and the assistant chancellors, all the unit heads, and Jill representing the 7 schools, we passed every hire that we had at the moment through that process, and we found, I believe fortunately for all of you that are asking, most of those, I think, fit the definition of critical. So far since Monday, we only have 2 new ones that will have to go through this definition probably on Monday. So I believe we'll get a cadence moving where on Mondays, whether it's the executive budget committee or the vice chancellors and assistant chancellors meeting, we'll be able to review these together, because it's so critical that we don't violate the rules of the UW. I would rather not do this entirely on my own, but have the rest of the team in the room so we can talk about each of those positions. They can advocate on why it's critical. We can hold up the definition and make sure that we're holding people accountable to stay true with all this. So I would say no longer than a week on each position. Some positions we may say it's on the verge of being critical. Let's wait just a little bit longer until more of the clarity comes clear to us with respect to, the budget. Are there going to be more cuts and things like that? So that's the best answer I can give. Acting on them, I believe, promptly as we've received them thus far, and will continue to be.
Okay. And Mark, I think this next question is best answered by you as well, and that is on our FAQ site, it talks about what faculty should do if they have to come to campus. What should a staff member do if they have to come to their office to pick something up or do something what should a staff member do if they need to come to campus?
Sure, Joe. And I just thought of something on the last question too, and Jill may want to pipe in, but the provost office assured us that those faculty decisions would be turned around promptly as well. So I think it's a similar situation with faculty hires too. If we believe it's critical and take it to the provost office, I believe we can expect to turn around a yes or a no very soon from that office. I won't put words in the provost's mouth on a specific amount of days, but I think it will be quickly. So what does a staff member do if they want to come to campus? Well, obviously, we encourage, or we ask everybody, and Mentha has already said this, to follow the rules of the stay home, stay healthy. And all of us are following those rules as well. When the crisis first started, there was a process in place where we could designate critical employees for the campus. And we went through a process, and I think we designated just over 50 who have reasons to be on campus periodically. And those people all have a letter that they can put in their glove box in their car. And if something happened and they were stopped or questioned, they have reason to be on campus. In the governor's order, he did say that faculty are considered critical because he's asked the institutions of higher learning to continue teaching. We have to do it remotely to fit the rest of the declaration, but all faculty have been designated as critical. So if you're not critical as designated in the 54 are faculty, then what you need to do, if you have a reason to be on campus, you need to go to your supervisor, and your supervisor, if that's a vice chancellor, can come directly to me. If it's not, they need to go to the vice chancellor, and the vice chancellor can review why you need to go to campus and say yes or say no. And then it's as easy as calling campus safety and letting them know that somebody is going to be on campus for this reason, and they'll direct to how to do that. So there is a mechanism. If you do need to come to campus, just talk to your supervisor about why and get that okayed, and then your vice chancellor or assistant chancellor will notify campus security, and they'll expect you. They are asking us to come to campus only during business hours, so from like 7 to 4 or so, if you do need to go, so that they can minimize the number of people involved with supervising that activity.
Joe, can I jump in for a second?
Yes.
So if I may, I would like all of our colleagues to also acknowledge the hard work of staff members. So certainly faculty members had to very quickly figure out how to take their curriculum and move into a remote environment. But we want to acknowledge too that there are a number of staff, all staff are teleworking at this juncture as well. And we know that there are a lot of things that are happening seamlessly and quietly behind the scenes that we sometimes don't acknowledge. So I and all of us right now want to just take a moment to acknowledge, thank, support, and applaud the staff with what you're doing to keep the campus operating and functioning. So colleagues, how about a round of applause for staff as well? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mentha. Absolutely. So this next question is for Jill, and it relates to the campus academic plan. And it is, where is UWT at in terms of the original academic plan and launching new programs? How will we proceed, and in what order?
That's a terrific question. Several programs that were expected to launch in this coming fall of 2020, had already been delayed because of lags in the program and curriculum approval processes. So at the moment, we have, for example, a fully approved program now, or an almost fully approved program as an EDS, a graduate degree in school psychology. That will be part of our School of Education. It still requires Board of Regents approval, but clearly we won't be ready to launch that program as planned this fall, given that we need to make preparations and have student applicants and kind of get things ready to launch. So we're anticipating that program will be delayed. As we come into the final stages of approval for our BS in mechanical engineering, we are expecting that program to move ahead. That is funded by legislative funding, and we actually have a mandate to move that program forward, so we anticipate moving forward. With other programs, they are all in various stages of preparation and review, so we're not necessarily we don't necessarily have from the schools what the plans are for when those programs will be moving forward. And of course, we are dependent on many steps in approval processes on up through the state level to assure that we can launch a program and that it will be the high quality that we expect at UW-Tacoma. So the launch of new programs going forward is going to be dependent on what happens with our budget situation and our financial situation, which the Chancellor, Executive Budget Committee, and Campus Budget Advisory Committee are all taking a close look at and will continue to be thoughtful about going forward. And then the schools will be making decisions based on their resources and the energy they have available and the investments they're prepared to make to get these programs launched. So we are really excited about the programs that were identified by our faculty to move forward in the academic plan. And we expect that those programs to continue rolling out, just perhaps at a slower pace than was originally anticipated.
Thank you, Jill. And Mark, I think this next question is best answered by you, and it is, if the governor lifts the stay-at-home order before the end of spring 2020, will UWT allow staff who have young children at home to have flexibility with continuing to work remotely? Will remote arrangements be possible for staff moving forward depending on the situation with K-12?
Yes, and I can't read a crystal ball, but I think the answer to all of those things is definitely yes. First of all, if you had an opportunity, the governor did talk yesterday for the first time about how it's going to work and releasing some of the restrictions moving forward. And he was very clear that we're not going to do it, abruptly. We're going to do it very thoughtfully and with a lot of scientific data informing his decisions moving forward. So us as a campus, we'll have to do the same thing. We'll have to work inside those boundaries that he puts in place and inside any boundaries that the UW puts in place. And then we'll depend on you as a faculty and staff on campus to help us decide how we do that in acceptable ways. And yes, we expect a lot of people who've gotten good at working remotely will ease back into coming to campus, and they can still do their work remotely, especially if their children are home from school, and that situation hasn't changed yet. So we'll work inside all the guidelines, and we'll make every accommodation possible to help our faculty and staff be successful in coming back. And I would invite any of the rest of you who have a comment on that to comment as well, but that's my opinion on that.
Does anyone else have a thought about that? A thumbs up from Mentha?
Thumbs up. So is Dr. Medeiros.
Yeah, I would just add very quickly, if I may, that a number of our staff we're looking at and finding creative teleworking arrangements at the start of this before the campus went to restricted operations in order to protect their own health or the health of loved ones. And I think we would absolutely want to continue supporting those concerns, even if it's not a health-related concern, if it's a care-related concern. And again, the extraordinary creativity and hard work and dedication of our staff is really evident in the working arrangements that have been there. And of course, we want to support them.
And,
absolutely. Mark, yep.
Yeah, Joe, I have another comment that's roughly related to this. If you had a chance to listen to the governor yesterday talk about the plans for moving forward, the really interesting thing about all this, and I'm very, very proud, as I already said, to be part of UWT, but I'm also proud to be part of UW. Many of the governor's decisions have been based on the work of scientists in the Institute of Health Metrics and in the medical school at UW. In fact, the White House and many other governors throughout the country are looking at and working alongside what the University of Washington is recommending. So I'm just really proud of that. Of course, we are going to do the right thing with respect to our people. And I think we don't want to get out ahead of the pandemic too fast, or we'll be back in the same boat again. We want to be very, very careful and ease into it, enjoy each other's company from afar. And Mentha told you earlier to not be out and about. Well, I think you can be out and about on your little front porch maybe, or in your backyard, but not out and about in masses throughout the community. So I encourage everybody to continue to do what we're supposed to be doing, and little by little, we can work our way into more of what we're used to.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. So this last question that I haven't received any others online yet. We could, while you're answering this, but what type of planning, this is for Jill, what type of planning is occurring now for summer B term 2020 and autumn 2020 quarter? If hybrid or some in-person classes are allowed, will accommodations be made for faculty and students who have health concerns?
Terrific question. Absolutely. So I think we're all very hopeful that at least some small group possibilities may be in place by the time we get to mid-July, and that we'll be able to have some small gatherings and perhaps even be able to offer some in-person instruction during summer term B. There's certainly no guarantee that that will be the case, and as the Chancellor said, we'll be following the guidance from the Governor in terms of what is best for the health and safety of our stakeholders, our students, and our communities. We are very much hoping that there's an opportunity to have some in-person instruction in summer term B, as I said, and that could include labs and field experiences where that's possible and appropriate in a short half of a summer term. President Cauce said that at this point, our quarter system, which is often a disadvantage to us, becomes an advantage because many schools are anticipating a fall semester start in mid-August, and we won't be starting our classes until the end of September. And so at this point, we have every intention of starting the fall quarter in person. We recognize that there may be restrictions in place. We may need to make modifications for social distancing. It's certainly possible that we would have a rebound or the public health situation should change such that there would still be remote learning opportunities, whether in part or in whole. So I think we need to be prepared for a variety of scenarios, but that our expectation right now is that fall, and our hope is that fall quarter will be in person, and we're not making plans to the contrary until we have a clearer understanding of how this public health threat is progressing in the coming months. The university will communicate with us their intentions as soon as they do have a sense of a real plan that may be some time away. Certainly, as we all work together through this ongoing situation, we want people to take the actions that are most appropriate for them to preserve their health, to protect and care for themselves and their loved ones in their communities. And so, as I mentioned earlier, I anticipate that we may see a number of courses that move to remote instruction or are developed fully as online courses, and those possibilities for faculty will still exist. For students, we will still want to provide the support that we always do to help students attain the learning goals, whether that is through in-person instruction or remote instruction. And so I think our sense of care and community and flexibility are the most important guides. Those values really matter the most to us going forward.
Joe, did you get another question yet?
I did just get one question about student questions that have been in kind of news reports about UW students and asking about tuition, which I think is a national thing as well, not just UW students, but paying tuition, which the answer to that is on the UW Seattle FAQ site. But would you like to kind of say any words about that?
No, I think it's very well said. I've read that a couple times and I've repeated it to students that have asked me about that. It's a very good statement, and it's unfortunately true that it's costing us the same right now. We're at our campus, we're mostly salaries. And like I said, we're keeping everybody on the payroll. So it's costing us essentially the same going remotely. In fact, at the beginning, it cost more because we had to beef up our technology infrastructure. But before we got to the end, Joe, and you closed it down, we have 4 of our esteemed colleagues who have dressed up and shown up here today that we haven't heard from. And I would like to just ask each one of them to maybe just say a sentence or two about what's been going on in their area. I know my friend Josh has got us this close in the campaign. My friend James down here has been helping us to make sure we make decisions with an equity lens in place. Dr. Madaris Ali has done the same with respect to our larger community. And then Patrick has been my hero through all of this. He has been doing great work. So can we let each one of them just say a sentence or two about how they're doing before we close her down?
That'd be great.
Patrick.
Let's see. All right. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm very glad to participate in this town hall this second time. I just hope that you all stay healthy and stay safe. As for me and my group, actually, we have people on campus every day, every working day, and we serve you through the virtual help desk 7 days a week. So please continue whatever you need. We'll provide the support that you need virtually, or even if you, for whatever reason, get to campus, you need some help, we have people there to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Josh.
Well, thanks, Mark. I'd say just on the campaign front, as you mentioned, it's in spite of what's going on around us, you know, I'm consistently amazed by the nature of this community we live in and the support that they provide us and our students. You mentioned the emergency aid support that's been received. There still remains strong interest in Milgard Hall project and the development of the programs that are in place on campus. So we just see that that energy continuing in spite of all those same funders trying to take care of those that are suffering most in our community. I also just want to note and recognize some of the advancement staff. John Burkhart, Brian Anderson have really done yeoman's work, so to speak, in trying to coordinate communications and make sure that the resources that are necessary are made available, the resources that are determined by the team that are in front of you today. So I really want to thank them. And I want to thank Brianna Bales for doing hard, nimble work alongside Carl in trying to figure out how we're going to have a really creative and wonderful experience for our students this year in spite of having to work through distancing and COVID and not being able to gather large groups. And I'm leaving out a lot, quite frankly, but I want to recognize those folks. So thank you, Mark. Go Huskies.
Ali.
Well, hello, everyone. It's great to be able to speak to you remotely. I hope you stay safe and healthy. Just like other offices, we have continued our work remotely. We remain in contact with our community partners. In addition to thanking faculty, staff, and students for your flexibility, I want to also thank our community for continuing their support of the work that we do. And part of partnership means that we are together in good times and bad. And these are not bad times. These are times that tests our level of commitment. And we remain committed, and we are continuing that interaction with all of you. I want to say that some of the virtual meetings that we have had with community, I'm amazed that even more people show up to those meetings. So these are all positive, and we'll continue this work as time allows us to be in person, until then remotely. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you. James.
Good afternoon, everyone. I too just wish that you are able to kind of weather these very challenging times, you and your loved ones. Our colleagues in the Center for Equity and Inclusion, in the midst of all of what's been going on around us, have not skipped a beat. And so they've been actively working to find ways to continue to build community, to help students, faculty, and staff kind of stay connected, and then also create opportunities for learning about issues related to diversity, equity, and inclusion in virtual spaces. So just recently, we had a really wonderful training led by the Rainbow Center, who did a session on LGBT competency training, which went really well. We also are actively working on developing other plans for supporting faculty who are thinking about issues of equity and inclusion in virtual spaces, in learning spaces, and so how to work to remove barriers that impede student access to learning in those spaces. And so A couple of weeks ago, I sent out some resources. I hope that you're tapping into those and using them. And if you come across additional resources that you think would be of value, please send them to me so that we can make sure to get that information on our website. We've also been receiving lots of questions about the status of the campus climate survey. So as you know, that was administered back in November of last year. And so Rankin and Associates have been really working hard to analyze that data and then help us build a report that would be disseminated to campus in May. We were initially planning to have a campus town hall. Of course, that will not take place in person, but we're considering two options right now. One would be to have a town hall virtually. The other would be potentially to push the in-person town hall to this fall. So the Tri-Campus Campus Climate Working Group is considering those options, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll have a recommendation to put forward. So with that, I just really hope that you are finding ways to experience joy in all of what you are doing, whether it's work or with family. Nothing is more important right now than to be in the presence, right, of others who can support you, and that you are doing what you can to support each other through this really difficult time.
Thank you, James. Exactly, and thank you to everyone for participating here on our leadership panel. Thank you also to those joining us through YouTube. I'll remind you that you can submit questions even after this is over, and we will either answer you directly or add them to our Q&A page. The email is uwttownhall@uw.edu. So, Mark, any last words to close things up?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Just let me say thank you to this panel as well. Everybody did an excellent job answering those questions. There were some difficult questions there. I also need to thank Paul and Josh and Mark and the rest of the team, John in the background, who's helping us put this thing on technically. Also, I have a couple other people to thank. I wanted to thank Chris Fuentes, who's the chair of our staff council, and Vinny Daw and his ASUWT team, and Marion Harris and Sarah Hampson. All these groups have been involved in the decision making and how we turn the larger decisions into what's real for UW-Tacoma. So thank you, everybody. It's been a real team effort. And like James says, what we love is the community of family or friends. And that's kind of why we're making this thing last a little bit longer here, because we like to be together. So thank you all who tuned in today, and look forward to talking to you again soon.